This podcast is supported by patrons. You can find a full list of them in the description of this episode. Hello, my listeners. Hello, listeners of Good Morning BSS World podcast. This is Wiktor, Doktor talking to you from Poland, and today I am connecting with Georgia. Georgia is a great location for developing business support services industry, and today we are going to have a chat with Irakli Arjevanidze, who will tell us a little bit more about this country. Hi, Irakli, how are you?
Hello, Dr. Wiktor. It's very glad to start the day with the talk with the doctor. It's always a pleasure. And I will be more than glad to share some insights and to talk about the opportunities about Georgia, because what we both do believe is that Georgia is still not discovered. So that would be really a pleasure to somehow help to find this tiny little small location on the map.
So, Irakli, maybe before we go deeper into the country where you are based now, let's maybe focus on who you are. Who do you represent? Just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, in this case, I would not start from the very beginning, like in my school and my education. Let's focus on the professional beginnings. I do represent a tax and legal advisory firm having a head office in Cyprus. And from 2018, we have opened our office in Georgia. The first office in Georgia was opened in Tbilisi, but now we do have two offices in Georgia, one located in Batumi, which is the second biggest city in the country, and Tbilisi, which is the capital of the country. And beside these two countries, which I have already mentioned, Cyprus and Georgia, we have offices in Estonia, and very shortly we will have our office in Dubai as well. And what we do is basically we do try our best to become the best corporate friends of the individuals and the companies, because we help them, to go in a narrow ways of legal and tax streets. So this is what we do.
So you are the best person to talk to about the business conditions in Georgia. You have already touched a little bit of geography of this country, mentioning Tbilisi and Batumi. But let's now maybe take a clear view where Georgia is located, because I can understand and I can imagine that some people may not know even where the country is located. So let's take a deep look from the geographical point of view where Georgia is and what are the main cities within this country.
Wiktor, you would be surprised how many people actually confuse Georgia with the state of Georgia, because when Georgia received the step-by-step instruction to join the EU, there was actually a post on the internet that if Georgia can join the EU, why California cannot, for example, and this kind of posts. So Georgia is a small country. Located on the seaside of Black Sea, just below Russia and above Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan. And from the business perspective, to consider Georgia, it might be the best geographical location to provide the services or goods to the world, because Georgia is just in the middle of European part and the Asian part, and having Russia above and the Gulf countries below, and Georgia is on the time zone GMT +4, which is not a big time difference to run the businesses from here. So geographically, I would say it's already one of the benefits of Georgia. So it can be considered for many options, starting from trading, ending with providing the services, for example. So this is like a very briefly to tell you. And for example, for agricultural needs, Georgia does have all the climatic zones, starting from the subtropical, ending with Alpic climatic zones, because we have a seaside and we have plenty of mountains.
You mentioned two cities already, Tbilisi and Batumi. What are other business cities within Georgia?
I would actually classify the cities in a different way, not the biggest, In my opinion, the capital, Tbilisi, is the best location for any kind of businesses, because you can find the government offices, you can find all the head office, what you might be needing for running the business in Tbilisi. And this is the best location for running the tradings and so on and so forth. Batumi is a seaside city where the majority of the touristic actions and attractions are going to. But in Batumi also we have a small port. So if the one is considering for the logistics, Batumi can be considered for logistic needs as well. But in Georgia, the biggest seaport we have is in Poti until now, because Poti is a hub of logistics for railway and sea trading. For easy getting to the country, especially for the Polish listeners, is Kutaisi, because Kutaisi is having the budget airline called Wizz Air, and from 6 different Polish cities you can get to Georgia with a direct flight with the budget airlines. If you are considering more agricultural activities and especially to the wine area, it's more Kakheti, which is a region in Georgia. And if you would be asking about the cities, the biggest city in Kakheti region is Tel Aviv, which is also a touristic center. But for running the business, Tel Aviv is a regional center as well. And Kakheti is the second biggest city in Kakheti region. So this is just for understanding, all the locations all over the country. But when we talk with the clients, actually, we do prefer to offer the cities and the locations in the country according to the business nature they will be running later.
Let's focus now a little bit on languages. Georgia has its own language, which is Georgian.
Yes.
Are there any other languages which are commonly used by Georgian people?
As you have mentioned, the national language is an official language, and if anyone wants to have any official documents or to have any communication with the government or to any official authorities, it has to be in the Georgian language. That's why one of our core services is a translating services, like translating the documents and so on. We do represent from our firm. Commonly used languages, if you would ask me, it's English, because especially for the new generation, especially for the new team and working forces, English is mostly used language in the country. Because even if you want to get an official certificate of the company, you can get it from the government in English officially. But again, just to underline, if you want to communicate, to request to get an English extract or certificate of the company, you have to apply in Georgian. This is the thing. Another commonly used foreign languages in the country is Russian and German, but you can easily find the French-speaking people, Greek-speaking people, and even Polish-speaking people as well, because we do have our office person who is actually from Poland, and she speaks perfect Polish, of course.
Like most of Polish people, actually, they do.
I was surprised, but yes, most of the Polish people.
Yeah, most of Polish people do speak Polish. Yeah, I do have the same feeling about those languages because I visited Georgia like a few weeks ago, and when I was walking around the streets of Tbilisi and Batumi, I could hear those languages which you have mentioned. So it means that either those are quite popular languages, or there is a group of foreigners who are using those languages and are visiting regularly Georgia. Okay, so let's move a little bit to the business area. Let's say that I am representing a BPO company or a IT company, and I am interested in setting up a business in Georgia. What should I be aware when during my process of establishing business over there?
Victor, this is a very good question, but let's start from the very beginning. I mean, why Georgia is becoming so popular in general for running the businesses from? The key point here is that from 2018, if I'm not mistaken, Georgia is using so-called Estonian model of taxation. Actually, it was from 2014. Estonian model of taxation means that the companies do not pay corporate taxes until the time they distribute the dividends. So, just to compare it to the Polish taxation, there is no need to have and to increase the cost of the company until end of the year to show as less profit as possible to apply a less profit tax at the end of the year. Because in Georgia, this logic does not work at all. It does not matter what is the profit at the end of the year, because according to the Georgian tax code, there is no profit in the company until the time you declare and you want to take it out. So, as an example, if you run the company for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and you have never took the money out, it means that you do not pay any corporate taxes.
This is nice.
Yeah, and I think this is logical because if you are reinvesting the money and you are putting this money to increase the business and to grow the business, so why should you pay the money? You pay the money, taxes, only when you want to put this money in your pocket. So this is the logic of the Georgian tax code, actually copied from Estonia, but we put it some Georgian spices in it. And in regards to the question you have asked, besides the standard LLCs, which are already using the Estonian model of taxation, for IT companies, there are additional benefits. For example, there is one certificate called International Company, which decreases the profit tax from 15% to 5%. And the most important part is that instead of paying 20% personal income tax for all the salaries, the owner of this company or owner of this certificate would be paying 5% only. Besides international companies, there is IT virtual zone certificate, which fully exempts you from the profit tax of 15%. Again, this 15% is paid only when you distribute the dividend. So, I mean, the business has to consider and change the way of thinking which of those taxation is better and which benefits actually gives more value to the venture.
Okay. So it looks like Georgia can be considered like a low taxation country.
It's not considered, it is. This is actually what I want to say louder and underline. And this is why actually I do think that Georgia is not yet discovered. Because even the government and especially the new generations do agree on the main thing that Georgia is not rich with the natural resources because we do not have an oil or we do not have any specific like a natural resources where we can generate the income to the country, but the location and the people. I'm not talking about the cuisine and wine yet. So, and the people and the geographical location can be converted in the way to become interesting for international investments. Okay. And that's why Georgia can become a very good location, very close to European Union and Gulf countries and Asian countries, and provide all those services from Georgia. And this will generate an income for the country.
You mentioned people. Actually, for the business services industry or for IT industry, people are absolutely very important. The cost of people is something different, but the accessibility to people, their education, their profession, their and so on and so on. This is something what companies who want to invest in a certain location are putting a lot of attention to. So, how is it about the accessibility of people who are properly educated, who has a certain experience for the business services industry? Is it easy to employ people in Georgia?
Uh, I would actually thank you for this question because, in my opinion, this is the most important part, especially for the investors who are considering to do the business from Georgia. In Georgia, there are people who you can hire easily and you can pay relatively low salaries comparing to the EU standards. And you can find a very qualified, expertized people in Georgia, and more or less it will be the same cost like European Union, especially from the IT field. But in my opinion, the biggest lack and the biggest gap we have in the country is knowledge and experience of the new technologies. So when I am having the consultation sessions with my clients, and if they need some to bring the new technology or new way of running the businesses, I will always advise to hire the group of juniors in the country and bring the head or team leader from abroad. And this team leader should train the group, and only the best from the team can stay to the join to the company, and it will be also a motivation for the company. And the team leader will also have an experience of developing the new groups outside the country. Because as I said, we do have a lot of young, motivated people, but we have a lack of getting the new knowledge, the new technologies from abroad. So if we are combining these two together, I think everyone can benefit out of it.
So the country is hungry for the know-how.
Very hungry, starving.
Starving. Okay. Another question. I know and I realize that since the pandemic, the hybrid model of work or the remote work is very popular across the world. Wherever we go, people do work in such a model. But anyway, when the BPO business or the ITO business is being set up in a new location, it needs some kind of a facility, some kind of office buildings. How is it in Georgia? Are the office buildings of A class or B class available or easy to access?
Uh, I would actually classify this question as an opportunity in one case, and the second one I will explain. I will actually answer this question. This field of providing A class and B class business centers are developing now. In Tbilisi, we already have several very good locations with all-inclusive services, providing lockable offices and so on. I will tell you actually this thing. We in Georgia started to having a co-working spaces like 4 years ago. And actually, our company was one of the first who has already starting serving from the co-working space before we would have our own office, which we bought. And in Batumi, they have opened the co-working space 2 years ago, before the COVID, after the COVID, sorry. But in Batumi, we still do not have a high-class business center, which is an opportunity, what I would say, because after the Russian-Ukrainian war, there is a high demand of relocation of businesses to Georgia. There are a lot of companies who are relocating the working force to Georgia, and one of the locations for relocation is Batumi. And we have an issue of finding the proper served office spaces. I mean, I'm not talking about the co-workings, because co-working in Batumi is already covered. There are very good options. If you would ask me about the costs, it starts from about the co-working. It starts from 150 euros, and depending on what kind of services you want to get, and it might go up to 300 euros per month. It depends on the number of desks you would be renting and so on. If you want to rent an office, an average square meter of 300, let's make it easier, 100 square meter, the price would be on the, I'm talking about the first ground floor level, direct entrance from the street. Average price for rental is around 2,000 euros from, as I said, from 60 to 100 square meters. Okay, 2,000 euros per month. If you want to rent an office in an office center, depending on what kind of services you want to get from them, I mean, do you want to have a separate internet, higher speed internet, cleaning and security, it's included. The price can be starting from 1,500 euros, going up to 5,000 euros per month, depending on the area, depending on many things. But again, as I said, because of this high range of prices, this is an indicator that the demand in the country for this kind of services is very high, which means that the one who will bring not only the investment to build the office space, but to provide the proper services, which might be definitely outstanding what is already on the market, can win the competition. Because again, as we start from the working force, because of lack of experience and the knowledge, we have a huge gap in providing the services as well. And if one is bringing the business in the country, which also brings outstanding quality of service, he or she will definitely win the competition.
You mentioned a couple of times euro as the currency, but we didn't touch this subject yet about the currency in Georgia. Georgia has its own currency, or like euros or dollars are popular in the regular payments?
Look, I am talking euros because it would be easier for our listeners to understand it to convert. But we do have in the country our national currency called lari. Uh, Roughly, the rate would be 3 lari to 1 euro. It might be changing now. It's, for example, 2.8, but it's easier later to calculate it 3 lari to 1 euro. Georgian lari, it's a main currency for all the transactions within the companies. So you cannot pay for it to the company in any other currency than Georgian lari. But when you are talking about the trading, it's very common in the country to use the international currencies. It depends to whom you are talking to. Uh, Internally, for example, if you are talking to Georgians, they are usually speaking in USD because for them it's much more easier. It's like in the rest of the world to talk about USD. But if you're having the business communication with the European Union more often, then your mindset is working in euros as well.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So now from currencies, let's go to the original origin of foreign investors who invest in Georgia. Is there any, let's say, dominating the capital, like for example from US or from Germany, who from the foreign investors is in the biggest quantity, let's say, in Georgia?
If you would check the statistics from the statistics department of the country, the biggest investor of the Georgia FDI is coming from Panama, for example. But again, the European Union is also one of the biggest investor because of a lot of projects what we are doing with European Union, European Development Bank, and in regards to the Asian countries, we have Asian Development Bank, and this also plays a big role in the statistics. But we are not the government officials, so we can speak very strictly and direct. And the biggest investor countries are the UAE countries, because they do invest a lot in the country in the real estate and some relocations and some productions. We have a lot of investments coming from European countries, from Poland. If you will be comparing the European Union countries, Poland would be the number one because there are a lot of investments in agriculture, in trading, in the real estate, and in relocation. We do have an ex-CIS countries a lot, and especially after the crisis and after the war, and because of the relocation. Turkey is one of the biggest investor country from the neighbors. Turkey with Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan is developing a lot of logistics centers, and for Azerbaijan, logistics is a key industry to develop in the country because through Georgia, Azerbaijan is having a direct connection to the sea. And that for Turkey, there is a lot of investments coming from manufacturing and real estate, of course. And just not to fix on these things, we have a lot of income from European Union, from tourism as well. Because, as I said, there are a lot of direct flights to the country from Poland. And just to have the numbers, before COVID, the income generated from the tourism was actually a number of tourists coming from to Georgia was around 12 million.
And what is the population of Georgia?
Population of the country is around 3 million, 3 point something.
Wow. So it means you had more visitors than inhabitants.
Yes. And that's why the COVID has had a huge influence on the economy of Georgia because of these numbers which I have mentioned on the tourism. And as it was announced this year, we have already reached the number of the previous COVID numbers, and we are going higher and higher.
So it can be even more and more.
Yes, and why I am mentioning that is if the tourism number of the tourists are rising in the country, all the touristic attached business activities should be interesting in the country, because as I said, in Georgia we might have a very beautiful wine and the cuisine, but the tourists will get fed up of tasting everything within next 3 days, and they want to have some more additional activities. I will give you one very good example in my opinion that, for example, in Batumi, which is the seaside city and the center of tourism, we do not have any water park, which might be a very good investments for one. The water park for summer resort, I think it's a must.
But there is a sea.
Always, but Victor, you have to know that Georgia is in subtropical climatic zone, and we do have a rainy days. And if one wants to generate the money for all those people who are actually already there, within all rainy days, they can generate the money from the water.
Very much true, very much true. I must say that I have a feeling we just touched a little bit the business climate, and not only business climate, but the regular climate of Georgia today. And I have a full card of notes in here, so
I
I
think
think
I'm winning the competition of the notes of yours.
yeah, I think we will need to have another chat to go farther and deeper into this, how the Georgian business environment looks like. But for today, we will put the full stop with one additional question. If somebody after this podcast would like to know more about business climate in Georgia, or just to get in touch with you, how would you direct that person?
Hello Georgia at IBCCS.tax. I am sure that there will be a description of those videos where you can mention a connection email of us. But one who is interested in more about Georgia, they can easily reach us on LinkedIn or Facebook, Instagram, or whatever channel they might need. IBCCS.tx, TAX is our website, and from the website they can also reach us, but also they can reach you, and you will be, I'm sure you will be glad to share our connecting email with them as well.
I will make sure to put all of those links in the description of today's episode, so it will make people easier to find you and to get to you. Irakli, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I'm looking forward to our next chat. So I'm more than sure we will find ourselves together in a short time. Thank you for today.
Thank you, Doctor, to help me for starting this day. And it was very interesting, Victor. It was a pleasure for me. And I am sure that there are a lot of topics which we have not covered, especially the fields of potential investments and what are the biggest opportunities in the country. So I will be more than glad to schedule a next meeting with you and a meeting with your viewers.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.